day, viewers. Welcome to our basic science class for today. We are still on living things. Today we take part 5. We're taking part 5 of living things. In our previous class, we discussed the transitional age from infancy down to adulthood. Today, we are going to look at the developmental changes in infancy. And if time permits, we'll take the second objective, identifying the characteristics or features of adolescents and adults. So let's look at the developmental changes in an infant. I'm going to group them into 3, then thereafter we'll break them into different stages. We'll talk about the cognitive, the language, and the physical. Cognitive, the child starts developing mental ability. It starts staring at objects. Start knowing that there are colors before him or her. Start recognizing the parents. Start recognizing the voice of those around him or her. For the cognitive, that means the mental ability has started developing. Then language. The child start making noise. Start making sounds. Sometimes, at this infant age, the later part of the infancy age, the child can call mama, daddy, mommy, whichever thing the child can call at this stage. The child start developing language skill, start making sounds that mimic that of those around him, those in his family, those that are close to him, those things they call to the child. The child start mimicking it. That is a language stage. Then we'll have the physical stage. At this time, you put the child on the bed. The child will use the 2 arms to raise himself. The child will grab objects. The child rolls from side to side. The child grabs objects, grabs your hands. The child laughs at you. The child stares at you. So these are the 3 areas the child develops at infancy: the cognitive, the language, and the physical. All these 3. But what does this child what can this child do at every staging point? What can this child do? Now let's look at the different stages, different months as the child moves in his infancy year or infancy period. What do we observe that the child does? Now, at 1 month, the child moves hand from side to side. Put the child on the bed. You see the child moving the hands from side to side. At 2 months, holds hand and neck. The child can try to hold his neck for a little while before it falls down. So the child now learns how to use the muscles of the head to hold himself erect or hold herself erect. At 3 months, he reaches and grabs at objects. If you put your finger before the child is going to grab your finger. If you put an object before the child seeks the object and try to grab it. You see it? Now, at 4 months, the child pushes its arms. You will be surprised, you lay a child on the bed, and before you come, the child has rolled to his sides and tried to push himself, or have rolled over on his tummy and tried to push himself or herself. So at this stage, you don't just leave the child on a very high bed or a chair. You have to monitor the child, because if he rolls over, the child can fall down. Now at 5 months, the child begins to roll over, laugh at you, you do signs, the child recognizes your signs, the child recognizes the mother's voice a little. These are the stages at 5. Now let's look at 6. What happens to the child? At 6 months, the child uses hands to support self and accept weight with the leg. This is when the child starts learning how to sit down. Uses his hand to support himself. You can place the child on a carton and put the child's hand on the ground, and the child can sit for a while supporting him or herself with the hands. And before you know it, the child learns how to sit without falling. Then at 9 months, this child sits down. If you put an object before the child tries to reach out for the object. He wants to go take that object, that toy, whatever object you place before the child. And the child, as he's stretching, can fall on his tummy or fall on her tummy at this stage. And at this stage, the child will start to move the legs and the arms. In some cases, for some children, as the child falls, you saw the child swimming on the ground, trying to make movement with the hands, with the legs, with the tummy, and moving on that sideways direction in order to reach for that object. Then at 12 months, the child pulls to stand. This is the stage where the child holds objects, furnitures in the house, the walls of the house, and the child starts moving around, start holding objects, using the legs, using the hands to hold objects to support him or herself, to gain balance. Now the weight is going to the leg and is trying to use those leg muscles to move around. At 12. Some children start from age 9 to use this ability. It varies from children to children. It is not fixed. Some children are faster in development while some are slower. But on a general note, we are categorizing them how it follows in infancy. Then we get to 12 months, the child starts to crawl. Use the legs and the hands to crawl. Some crawl on their buttocks. Some crawl with their legs and their hands. So the child starts to crawl at this stage. It crawls to get objects. It crawls to get attention of others. Now we get to the last I'm going to talk on the infancy stage, 15 months. At this time, the child have learned how to crawl, have learned how to support him or herself with his legs. The child have learned how to hold objects and start standing independently. This stage, the child starts standing independently between the ages of 12, or between the ages of 9 months to 15 months. You start learning how to stand independently and start moving the leg independently of anybody. He will not hold objects, he will not hold furniture, he will not hold the wall. He stands on his own, gaining balance, throwing some few steps, and before you know it, the child starts walking for a longer distance without falling. Initially, the child walk a little, falls down, stand up, start all over again. Gradually, the child develops to a child who walks with his leg and then plays around with objects, plays around with others. All of these stages, at these stages, the child starts learning language. His cognitive ability has started developing rapidly. So we have seen the developmental stages of an infancy from 1 month to 15 months. These are how they move from one stage to another, from this month to another. That is the number 1 objective for this class. Then the next one is identify the characteristic features of adolescents and adults. I'm going to talk briefly on this because we'll meet it in other of our subsequent classes. Remember we discussed adolescence, the transitional age from childhood to adolescence. We talk about the early adolescent, the middle adolescent, the late adolescent. And we'll talk about the early adults and the adult proper. Please, if you've not watched that class, it is part 3 of living things that we discussed, that I discussed that transitional age from childhood to adulthood. I am going to put the link below this video so you can go watch it. That's why I'm not going to talk about it, because I've dealt on that area in my previous class. But let me try to summarize it this way. The features at adolescent is, let's take the girl child first. The girl child try to come up with developmental features like developing the breasts, developing the armpit hair and the pubic hair, having broader pelvic bone. The child starts menstruating. The child starts developing mentally gradually. The child starts wanting to associate with his peer, following his peers, getting attracted to the opposite sex. Some of them have acne on the face, pimples, and then they grow bigger at this stage for the girl child. For the boy child, the voice start deepening, start having hairs all over the body. The child start experiencing wet dreams. The boy child starts being attracted to the opposite sex, start taking care of his appearances, and so many other things, changes that goes on in the body. Start growing taller, the voice deepens, start becoming a man, because he's transiting from adolescence, from childhood to adolescence. And then after these areas, because even in this adolescence to adulthood, we have the mental development, the cognitive development, the physical development. You can categorize them into different areas. The mental development, the child start being more analytical, start interacting more intelligently. Physical development, you see these physical changes. You see the strength in the child. And then, at adulthood, as they transit from adolescence to adulthood, they start mastering skills, careers. They start being focused. They start identifying with what they actually want to pursue in life. They start being more objective, goal-oriented. Start looking for mentors. Start looking for ways to face the actual world. So these are the transitional effects, because they know that at adulthood, they are accountable. They are ready to answer for themselves. So as they transit from adolescent, the late adolescents, you see them do things differently. So we've talked about the developmental stages of an infancy. We've seen to some of the characteristics of adolescence and adulthood. The transitional effect. I'm going to put the link on where I discuss the transition from childhood to adulthood. That explains the second objective, but I try to paraphrase it so that it will be easier for you to understand. So this will be it in our basic science class for today. I hope you find value for it. If you do, give us a thumbs up, share this video, keep dropping by on the channel, subscribe if you've not subscribed, and always drop by on the channel. It is not a monologue class, it's a dialogue class, a discussion between you and I. Please ask your question below the comment box. Tell us what you like and what you don't like. Tell us where you don't understand so we can discuss more. It's my pleasure being here with you. As always, I will always drop by on the channel. You are my community and I love this community. Let's make the community larger than as it is right now so that we become one big family. Until I come your way next time, Thank you.